Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen of the chains. You're listening to the Putt Approach Radio Podcast. I'm recording this in the heart of the Disc Golf Corn Maze, also known as Iowa. I'm your host, Connor Kissling, and you're listening to Episode 2, and I'm recording this on Saturday, December 31st, the last day of 2016. Today's episode takes a quick look at what I'm throwing. I'll be reviewing a couple of moles that are staples in my bag. I'll also be talking tips on nailing those pesky putts and sinking those dirty birds. Join me as I share some insight into what can make or break your round. Putting. Let's take a moment to take a quick dive into my bag. Starting out, I've got 2 blend judges in baby blue at the moment. I've got 2 more red blend judges coming from my sponsor, InfiniteDisc.com. If you need any discs, they've got them. Check them out. To move on, I've also got a Lucid Judge, all white, that sexy white, pearly, milky plastic. Great for off the pad. That's really all I use it for, maybe 150, 200 feet out there. Pretty much any line I want to put it on, it'll stick it. Second, one of my favorite, also putters, but for me, I use them more of a mid-range and upshot disc. I've got 3 harps, 3 different plastics. I've got one in BT Soft, a BT Medium, and a VIP. The VIP is another disc I'm throwing off the pad for more stable, maybe windier days. The blend, or the BT Medium and Soft, are just solid upshot discs. Throw them and they stick where you land. Nice and overstable, nice and trustworthy. Another set of putters I've got in my bag are the Westside Discs Swan 1 Reborn. I've got 1 in hard, 1 in medium, and 1 in soft. It kind of depends on the day what I'm feeling for plastic types, but they can be thrown on a low power to get them to go straight. You can pop them up on a higher powered shot. They'll pop all the way up and then flip all the way over and hold that ante line till they hit the ground. Next, one of the newer discs in my bag. The Latitude 64 Compass. Currently, I have 2 in my bag, both in the Optoplastic Ricky Wysocki World Championship stamp right on the front there. Pretty sweet disc. They're pretty stable. They'll hold up to at least my backhand game. I can give them a soft flick, but anything too powerful will turn them over into rollers, and not really usually something I'm looking for. For something that's a little bit more stable on the forehand game, I've got 2 dynamic discs, Verdicts, both in lucid plastic. I just got one in the mail tonight. Haven't been able to throw it yet, but it's a sexy blue with a red stamp on it. Can't wait to throw that guy out there. They're great for forehands. Great for straight to overstable shots. Just one of my favorite discs that I've recently put in my bag as well as the Compass. Next, we step up to fairway drivers. I'm bagging a lot of fairway drivers. 2 discs that I rely on for stable to flat to stable drives. The Westside Discs VIP Long Bowman. It's a newer disc that they came out with this last year, and I love it. Forehands, backhands, I can't throw this disc enough, honestly. Next is probably my most used disc in my bag, maybe other than my putters. I've got 2 Lucid Escapes, as well as 2 Fluid Escapes. Throwing the Lucid on more of a straight to turnover drive. The Fluid are going to be pretty much more overstable without that high-speed turn in there. Next, for my high-speed drivers, I really only carry 2 different molds of high-speed drivers, and one is the Trespass, and one is the Defender. Currently, I have 1 Lucid Trespass and 1 Biofusion Trespass. The Lucid will pop up for me, hold a straight line, and fade back down to the left, whereas the Biofusion plastic has beat in quite a bit, so it'll pop up, hold a straight line for a while, and get a little bit of turn there towards the end before coming back. Probably one of the furthest throwing discs in my bag. Next, my Defenders. I got 2 in Biofusion. One of the newer discs that the Dynamic Disc came out with. They're pretty beefy to start out with, but I've beat these Defenders in where I can throw them straight, and they'll hold that line for a bit and then fade hard at the end. They're great. They're great drivers, especially in the wind, and it's pretty much what I use them for most of the time. I don't really have a huge arm, so I'm not cranking those out there and getting as much distance as I would the Trespass or the Escape even. But they are great discs, and they come in handy quite a bit here in the Iowa winds. So that's my bag. It's pretty unchanging at the moment. I might get a few new different plastic types, but the molds have stayed the same for a little while now, other than the Compass and the Verdict. Those are my 2 newest ones. They kicked out the EMAC Truth and the old Truth, I guess, for my mid-range spot. The Truths just weren't holding up to my arm. I was starting to flip over the old Truth. I'd get a little bit of high-speed turn out of the new Truth, and they'd come back real soft. But I got a hold of a Compass at a tournament I played earlier this year, and pretty much since then I've been working that into my bag, and now I've got 2 or 3 that I can cycle in and out and keep those rocking. The second segment here in the Putt and Approach Radio Podcast, Episode 2, I'm going to be talking a little bit about putting. Definitely one of the most needed parts of anybody's game. You can throw a drive, great. If you can't hit that putt, it doesn't matter. If you can throw a drive further than anybody else on your card, but they can place that shot or throw that shot in from wherever their drive landed, and you're missing the 2 because you can't putt, then you lose every tournament, no matter what. Pretty much, practice is key to getting putting in, and honestly, putting practice can be pretty boring at times. I just got a basket for Christmas, and I've taped off every 5 feet in my hallway, and I've been putting probably anywhere from 20 to 200 putts a day, just screwing around and while I'm at home doing pretty much nothing. It can be a little dangerous with a 3-year-old around, but he's learned, and he's thrown to the basket a few times. I even got my wife out there today throwing into the basket from the hallway. So that was cool. She doesn't really play disc golf much, but she had a little bit of fun, I think, throwing a few putters into the basket. As far as putting goes, you want to get down a solid grip. Currently, I'm throwing with 1 finger. I like to putt with a beaded putter, which is what the Judge is. And so I put my index finger out and kind of aim it towards the basket when I'm putting. It's more so my knuckle that I'm aiming towards the basket and then releasing it off that index finger. I also do a fan grip on the bottom, which gives me, I think, a nice clean release. It kind of has a little bit more control than maybe a stacked grip or any other putting grips you have out there. There's tons of different putting grips out there that you could give a try. There's turbo putts, stacked finger putts. You don't have to put your finger out on the rim or anything. It's just kind of what feels good to you. and what can work. There's also spin putts, which I don't really like to classify myself as a spin putter or a loft putter. I think I'm right there in the middle of what maybe people call a splish putt. I don't really try to think about what to label it. I just go out there and practice doing what I'm doing, and it's been working out pretty decently so far. I definitely need some practice out on the course. I played a pretty windy round the other day after Christmas, and I don't think I hit a putt within 10 feet all day. But that's where practice comes in. I'm sure over the next year I'll have plenty of more windy rounds to get out there and practice what to do in the wind. I've noticed I have gone to my harps on occasion when it gets real windy, and they can still even get caught up in the wind. Some tips for putting in the wind that I learned from Jason Bach the other day when it was, 30 mile per hour winds out there off the lake. He said, throw the putter upside down. That way the wind's not affecting the underside of the flight plate and lifting it into the air or lifting it wherever you don't want it to go. It can be effective. It was also going to take some time to get that down, especially if you're putting from outside or close to the outside of the circle. Pretty much as far as putting goes, you're going to just want to practice, and find a grip that works well for you. I don't use the same grip I use for putting when I'm driving with a putter. I use a power grip on all of my drives off the pad, drives, or up shots. Pretty much anytime I'm not putting, I'm using a power grip just for consistency. I've tried throwing with the fan grip that I use when I'm putting, and I just can't do it. It just doesn't feel right to me. I'm not getting enough power on it, and I'm just kind of wimping it out there, pretty much going nowhere. Another thing to think about is putting is, are you putting up to a basket, down to a basket level? I think obviously the easiest is going to be putting straight at a basket that's at ground height. Putting up in the air, especially if it's windy, even just a little bit of wind, it makes it 100 times harder to hit that basket up on a hill or a raised basket, because you're going to throw up into the wind and it's going to catch the bottom plate and push you out probably to the left there, and you're just going to fall short. If you're putting down, I feel that it's easier to get closer to the ground, get closer to that normal height of the basket and putt that way. It can be hard putting down a hill. It kind of depends on how far you're out, though. If you're pretty close, and just putt at the basket. But putting has a million different ways to be done. It has a million different ways it could go wrong, and I'm going to take a little bit of time of how that could go wrong. So I'm going to start out with, say you throw your drive, it's a 350 foot hole, you throw your drive 325 feet. So you're inside the circle, which is 33 feet as of right now. The rules may change on that. I've heard talk of the PGA changing that circle out to even 50 meters, which is, in my opinion, way too far for a putting circle. But it's to eliminate the jump putting, which I will also talk about later in this podcast. So you're 25 feet out, and you set up to your lie. You put your marker down just in front of your disc, and you step up to make that putt. And what I find is thinking about the putt less helps me out to hit that putt. So if I sit there for my allotted 30 seconds, say I sit there for 25 seconds, and really think about where I need to put that disc, I'm going to miss almost every time. I need to just stand up there, I need to put my mini down, stand back, realize the shot I need to make, step back up, and just putt like I know I need to. This isn't something that you're going to be able to do right every time, especially if you're new to the game, but taking your time and hitting a specific change like you'll hear many people talk about, I find that I lose my momentum maybe, but I'm just thinking too hard about something that should be relatively easy for me after practicing for a few years. So I walk up and depending on where I'm at, if I'm on the side of a hill, I might take a straddle putt, or if I'm on flat ground, I'm going to take a non-straddle putt and just throw the basket. I throw it on a little bit of a hyzer. My buddy Cody Leggett, again, he's like a disc golf father to me. We went back and forth earlier this year on whether you should throw with an anhyzer or a hyzer. For the longest time, I was throwing on a hyzer and getting really good results. And then one day he had to say that I should be throwing on a hyzer due to the side of the change you hit. If you hit the left side of the chains, it could spit out, especially if your disc is rotating that way. It's just easier for that disc to hit those chains and spin out of them than it would be if you hit the right side of the chains on a hyzer where your disc is rotating into the chains, into the center of the basket, and hopefully into the bottom of the basket. Also, with a anhyzer putt, like I was doing, if I missed the basket completely, that disc would find the whole flight out and fade out further away from the basket, whereas if I was throwing on a hyzer and I missed the basket, it wouldn't be as far to make that next putt. So there's a lot of things to think about, but I throw on a hyzer, just a slight hyzer, not something like I'm going to throw a spike hyzer into the basket. Just a nice maybe 20 degrees, might even be pushing that, and just a nice clean release. A lot of people will tell you to putt through the chains, not to the chains, because that can often result in you hitting the bottom of the basket or just coming up short in general. So you're going to want to putt through the chains, give it a nice, good go at it if you're going to be committed to making that putt. If you're a little further out, you maybe want to like a little half go, and again, you're just going to put a nice hyzer on it just to get it to land near the basket. Those are all things that I find helpful. But most importantly, I think finding a disc that feels comfortable and you can feel confident in throwing and putting with. I think that is the most important thing for putting, at least, and probably all of disc golf, honestly. I practice all different kinds of putting. I don't really practice different ways of throwing my putter. I always throw with the hyzer, either straddle putt or not straddle putt. I'm sure there's a word for not straddle putting, but I can't think of it. And maybe there's not one, so maybe I'll invent one. And it's more of like a direct, you've got one foot planted in front of you while your other foot is down to the behind you, depending on whether your left or right foot is on your left or right side of your foot, your plant foot. And it's really a whole body motion, not just an arm toss. I always try a rock back on my back foot and then kind of push through, lifting that back foot away from the basket, but I lean my body towards the basket to get just a little bit more momentum from my body, as opposed to just throwing the putter with my wrist or my arm. I have tried unsuccessfully throwing turbo putts, so that's something I'm going to need to work on for those tights in the woods situations where I need to maybe go up over an obstacle, a tree limb or something, and it's a lot more difficult to get that on a good line. Johnny McRae recommends he's the godfather of turbo putting. I know he learned it down in Florida, but if you say turbo putting, anybody thinks of Johnny McRae. So you want to put your thumb on the inside of the disc. I usually find where the mold has been kind of cut from, the plastic has been cut from the mold. I'm not sure how they do it, but there's always like a little dimple or something in the middle. So I put my thumb on that and then kind of spread my other 4 fingers around the back side of the disc. And before I throw, I kind of do a little bit of mock throwing, where I just kind of bring the disc back and forth and move my fingers from the back of the putter to where the front of the putter would be, and just kind of gauge where I need to throw that. Again, I'm no expert at it, and I've rarely done a successful turbo putt in practice. I've never thrown one in a tournament or during a serious round, so take it or leave it. But they can be a lot of fun. Johnny McRae recommends that you to get good at them, you have to throw back and forth to a friend or somebody to get that rhythm down. I think most of putting is a rhythmic motion, where if you can get a rhythm down and you can stick to that rhythm, you're going to be hitting more putts more frequently, unless you have just a bad form or a form that is flawed to begin with. I'm no expert on putting, though. These are just what I think help me, and hopefully they help you. Just go out there and grab your putter of choice. Find a good grip for it, whether it be the index finger out or the stacked grip or full fan grip with your index finger underneath the flight plate there. And just throw over and over. If you don't have a basket, throw to a friend. If you don't have a friend, maybe find a friend. There's always something to throw at. I was throwing down the hallway before I got my basket down into, I had a laundry basket at the end of the hallway where I would aim for, and it might not be the best thing, but it's definitely better than only throwing your putts during rounds, because I mean, at least you're getting the rhythm down to where you need to throw the putter and you have a target picked out for that putter. That's about all I got for putting and putting practice. If there's anything that you need to let me know, or if you have any questions about putting, I'll do my best to answer them. But again, I'm not an expert. I am no professional disc golfer. I am definitely not the best putter even in the area. But it's definitely something that every player needs to have and needs to have down well for them to do good. Before I sign out, I want to say thanks again to Jacob Stevens for creating an intro music for all my podcasts. We don't have one currently, but we're working on getting one put together, and they'll be at the beginning of every podcast. So hopefully by the time that this second episode and the first episode are released, I'll have a really nice intro music it'll be nice to have that constant in the beginning of the podcast, kind of as an identifier. I want to say thanks to everybody that helped me in my disc golf career, my wife, my parents for getting me a basket, everybody in the Des Moines area for accepting me and letting me help on certain projects and helping me with my disc golf game. If it's like Albert, he told me to putt through the chains, and so I did that, and it's improved my putting in a big way. I I only played with one round with him, and immediately he knew that I wasn't committing to my putts, and I was falling short every time. And so after that round, I kept that in mind and tried to putt with authority, if you will. So I hope everybody has a good 2017 year and disc golf season, whether you're playing tournaments, playing with your friends, just playing at leagues. I hope that you at least have fun out there, if not get to your goals. Mine currently are to play more tournaments than I did this year, to raise my PDGA rating up to at least 900, which I hope is possible because I'm sitting at an 880 right now, and it can't be far off 20 points. I know I can do it. I just got to put the practice in, get the tournaments in there, and prove to myself that I am a 900, at least 900 rated disc golf player. Before we part today, I want to take a minute to say that this podcast wouldn't be anything without a little help from a few friends. So thank you, Jacob Stevens, for the music tracks at the beginning and the end of the show, as well as a thank you to John Grant, who was kind enough to throw together the logo that you see on the Facebook page and hopefully on the podcast page. If you want to get in touch with me, I do have a Facebook page now, so find me on the Facebooks and tell me what you think. Give me a like and share with your friends. That's it for today. I'll catch you next time on the Putt and Approach Radio Podcast.